Pioneer viewers, how are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring you the most important developments regarding Russia-Ukraine war. In a moment, we will analyze the latest developments on the front line with a map. We have not been sharing map reports for a while, but we thought it was necessary to share a map report again due to the latest developments on the front line and behind the front line. As you know, the Free Russian Legion is conducting an operation inside Russian territory, and I will examine this operation in today's map report. According to the latest reports, the front line is also very active. Ukrainian armed forces troops continue their strong resistance on the defense lines. Although the Russian army has been trying to advance, but they have not achieved any significant successes on the front line for a long time. And the strong defense line established by the Ukrainian armed forces prevents the Russian troops from advancing. And the Russian army may have reached its maximum advance phase. And any further advance will be a big surprise. So what is the latest situation on the front line? Let's take a look at developments together. Before starting our report, I need to make a small reminder. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring you developments regarding the Russia-Ukraine war. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. I also read all of your comments on our videos. Please continue to express your opinions about our content in the comments. Let's start if you are ready, the Pioneer reports. Let's start with the latest developments on the Zaporizhia front line. According to the latest reports, the fighting on the Robotin sector of the Zaporizhia front line is taking place mainly in the direction of Robotin and Verbov. We observe that the clashes continue in the northwest of Robotin and Verbov, where the Russian armed forces are occupying positions taken from the Ukrainian armed forces. Both sides are attacking with long-range weapons, and the borderline in this area remains largely unchanged. It is also reported that all the Russian attacks near Verbov have been stopped. However, this is also an allegation. According to the Ukrainian sources, Russian activity around Verbov has been greatly reduced, and therefore the main defense groups of the Ukrainian army are reportedly deployed around the town of Robotin. On the other hand, the advance of the RF armed forces southwest of Goliapol continues, and there is a fierce resistance from the Ukrainian armed forces. As a result of the offensive's operations, Russian troops allegedly captured the Marine region, but there is still no visual confirmation from the region, and the borderline is largely stable. Let's continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted units of the Ukrainian armed forces stations in Robotin, around Verbov and Orikhiv. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted units of the Russian armed forces in the direction of Kopani, Novoprokopovka and Solotka Balka. Let us continue by analyzing the latest developments on the Donetsk front line. According to the latest reports, heavy fighting is taking place on the Donetsk front line, especially on the Tonikoy, Orlivka and Berdyachi line. The latest counter-clashes on the Tonikoy, Orlivka, Berdyachi line, and Russian troops are trying to increase the successes of their recent advances, and they are very focused on successes here, because the Russian army has not made any serious gains since the Avdiivka. The units of the Russian armed forces continue to squeeze the defense units of the Ukrainian armed forces, but the advances of the Russian troops is not fast. This is due to, firstly, to the fierce resistance of the Ukrainian armed forces in the area, and secondly, to the actions of the leadership of the Russian armed forces, which is trying to protect its personnel by avoiding frontal attacks as much as possible. Well, we often talk about the high losses of the Russian army here, and this has now begun to manifest itself in the decisions of the Russian combat leadership. There is a concentrated effort to prevent further losses of the units of the Russian armed forces, but this will not be a long-term policy because the Russian army needs to advance. Every day that progress is delayed puts the Russian army in an even more difficult situation. However, this advance is not possible in the face of a strong resistance from the Ukrainian armed forces. Meanwhile, on the Donetsk front line, the Russian armed forces have achieved tactical successes in the village of Novomikhailivka, and there are counter-battles in Pobeda and Gorgorivka. There are no new gains for the Russian troops in these counter-battles either, and the Permovskoye, the Russian army forces continue to advance little by little through the village. The artillery air forces and of the Russian armed forces are also active, and the Ukrainian armed forces are offering fierce resistance. And this resistance is the biggest problem facing the Russian armed forces at the moment. Let's continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted units of the Ukrainian armed forces stations in Permovskoye, Nevolsky, Nataliivka, and Semeniivka and Berdyachi. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted units of the Russian armed forces in Severny, Orliivka, Vyatny, and Avdiivka. Let me continue with the latest situation on the front line, Bakhmut front line. According to the latest reports on the Bakhmut front line, units of the Russian armed forces have again launched fierce offensives against the settlements on the southern flank of Bakhmut, and it is reported that the artillery units are heavily involved in these attacks. However, Ukrainian resistance is still strong. In particular, the offensives in the direction of Klishchiivka was a major disaster for the Russian army, and it is reported that the Ukrainian armed forces destroyed a large number of Russian troops during these recent attacks. Both the Klishchiivka and Andreevka offensives by the Russian troops in the region failed, and the Ukrainian armed forces troops continue to hold their positions. Let's continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted units of the Ukrainian armed forces stations in Klishchiivka, Andreevka, and Kasov Yar. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted units of the Russian armed forces in Bakhmut city center, Yahidny, and Berkhyivka. Let's take a look at the situation inside the borders of the Russian Federation. According to reports in the direction of Kharkiv and Sumy, the Free Russian Legion have reverted to the small group tactics. These groups are now periodically trying to infiltrate Teitikno and Kazinka in the groups of 6 to 8 people, but so far these operations have not yielded any results. Ukrainian artillery continue to support the operations of the Free Russian Legion with intensive attacks on the Belgorod and Kursk region, and the attacks have become a daily occurrence. The Russian army has nothing to do with their air defense here anymore, and if they want to stop the attacks, they need more counter batteries. Without this counter battery fire, the presence of the Free Russian Legion and affiliated groups in the region will not be stopped. So, what do you think, and how do you think the situation on the Zaporizhia front line will evolve? How do you assess the situation of the Ukrainian army on the Donetsk front line? How long do you think the offensives of the Free Russian Legion will continue? Let me know in the comments, because you know that I read and I care about all of your comments.